What if becoming magnetic has nothing to do with being the most beautiful woman in the room? What if it begins the moment you stop trying to prove your worth and start living as though you already know it? A queen is not created by attention, approval, or perfection. She rises through the way she thinks, the standards she keeps, the boundaries she protects, and the energy she brings into every room. Today, we're going to uncover 6 powerful shifts that can take a woman from feeling ordinary to becoming absolutely magnetic. There comes a moment in every woman's life when she has to make a decision. Am I going to keep living for the approval of others? Or am I finally going to learn how to approve of myself? That decision may seem simple, but it can completely change the direction of your life. Because when you constantly seek approval, you slowly hand the power over your identity to everyone around you. You allow their opinions to determine whether you feel beautiful, intelligent, worthy, successful, or enough. And the problem with that is simple. People change their minds. Their expectations change. Their attention changes. Their opinions change. If your confidence depends on them, your confidence will always be unstable. A queen rises when she stops asking, "Do they like me?" and starts asking, "Do I respect the woman I am becoming?" That is a completely different question. One is about external validation. The other is about internal character. When you begin measuring yourself by your own values, you become much harder to manipulate. You no longer need everyone to understand your choices. You no longer feel desperate to explain every boundary. You no longer chase people who have decided not to value you. You understand that your worth does not increase when someone chooses you, and it does not decrease when someone walks away. Self-respect is built through small decisions. It is keeping the promise you made to yourself. It is walking away from conversations that repeatedly disrespect you. It is refusing to betray your principles just to remain accepted. It is taking care of your mind, your body, your time, and your future. Every time you honor yourself, you send yourself a message. I matter. My life matters. My choices matter. And this is where transformation begins. You don't suddenly wake up one morning feeling completely confident. Confidence is often the result of evidence. You become confident because you repeatedly prove to yourself that you can trust yourself. When you say you are going to do something and you actually do it, you build trust. When you decide you will stop tolerating something and you follow through, you build trust. When you choose discipline over temporary comfort, you build trust. Slowly, your relationship with yourself becomes stronger. You also begin to understand that being liked is not the same as being respected. Sometimes people will dislike your boundaries because they benefited from you having none. Sometimes they will call you difficult because you finally learned to say no. Sometimes they will misunderstand your silence because they were accustomed to having unlimited access to your attention. Let them misunderstand you. You do not have to sacrifice your peace simply to maintain someone else's version of you. A woman who respects herself doesn't become arrogant. She becomes grounded. She can compliment another woman without feeling threatened. She can celebrate someone else's success without believing it diminishes her own. She can accept criticism without allowing criticism to destroy her identity. She can admit when she's wrong without feeling worthless. That is strength. The goal is not to become a woman who never cares what anyone thinks. That is unrealistic. We are human beings, and connection matters. The goal is to stop allowing other people's opinions to become the foundation of your identity. Listen to wise feedback. Learn from people you trust. But ultimately, you must decide who you are, because the most magnetic woman in the room is rarely the woman trying desperately to be noticed. She is the woman who is comfortable being herself. She doesn't need to perform confidence because she has developed self-respect. She doesn't need to compete because she understands her own path. She doesn't need to chase validation because she has learned how to validate her own progress. So start there. Stop asking the world for permission to believe in yourself. Stop waiting for someone else to tell you that you are worthy. Look at the woman you are today, acknowledge how far she has come, and then make a commitment to the woman you are becoming. A queen doesn't rise because everyone finally recognizes her value. She rises because she finally recognizes it herself. A woman becomes truly magnetic when she stops living a life designed around other people's expectations and begins building a life that has meaning to her. Because beauty can attract attention, confidence can command a room, but purpose gives a woman direction. And when a woman knows where she is going, there is something powerful about her presence. She doesn't need to constantly ask everyone else what she should do next. She has a reason behind her decisions. Purpose does not have to mean changing the world. It can begin with something deeply personal. It can mean becoming the best mother you can be, building a meaningful career, creating something of your own, helping others, developing your talents, becoming financially independent, strengthening your character, or simply becoming the woman you know you are capable of becoming. Purpose is not always a grand mission written across the sky. Sometimes it is a quiet commitment you make to yourself every morning. The problem is that many people spend years chasing goals they never truly chose. They pursue a certain lifestyle because everyone around them says it represents success. They compare their progress with people online. They measure themselves against friends, relatives, colleagues, or strangers. They look at someone else's life and think, maybe that's what I should want. But a life built from comparison will eventually feel empty, even if it looks impressive from the outside. A queen learns to ask a different question. What actually matters to me? That question can be uncomfortable because the answer may require change. Maybe you discover that the career you pursued doesn't fulfill you. Maybe you realize that some relationships are draining your energy. Maybe you recognize that you've been saying yes to things because you were afraid of disappointing people. Purpose forces you to become honest with yourself. And honesty is powerful. When you know what matters to you, your decisions become clearer. You don't have to say yes to everything because you know what deserves your time. You don't have to chase every opportunity because you understand that not every opportunity belongs to your path. You don't have to compete with everyone because your definition of success is personal. Purpose also changes how you handle difficult seasons. Without direction, obstacles can feel like evidence that you should quit. But when you have a meaningful reason behind what you're doing, challenges become part of the journey. You may still feel tired. You may still experience rejection. You may still have moments when you question yourself. But somewhere inside, you remember why you started. That why gives you strength. Think about the woman who decides she wants to become healthier. If her only reason is to look better than someone else, her motivation may disappear when progress becomes slow. But if her reason is to have more energy, feel stronger, live longer, and become someone she can be proud of, the journey becomes deeper. The goal is no longer just appearance. It becomes identity. This is why purpose creates magnetism. A woman with purpose has something to contribute. She has interests, principles, goals, curiosity, and a life beyond seeking attention. She doesn't enter relationships hoping someone will give her an identity. She enters them already knowing who she is. And that changes everything. When you have purpose, you become less desperate for temporary validation. You understand that one person's rejection cannot erase your direction. One failed opportunity cannot define your future. One difficult chapter cannot become the entire story. You begin investing your energy differently. Instead of spending hours wondering who noticed you, you spend time becoming someone you respect. Instead of obsessing over who is talking about you, you focus on what you are building. Instead of asking, how can I make people choose me? You begin asking, what can I create, contribute, learn, and become? That is the shift. Your purpose does not need to impress anyone. It needs to inspire you to keep moving. And once you have something meaningful to move toward, your energy changes. Your conversations become richer. Your confidence becomes quieter. Your presence becomes more grounded. The world doesn't need another woman trying to become someone else. It needs women who know who they are, what they value, and why they are here. So give yourself permission to discover your direction. You don't need to have every answer today. Start with what matters. Start with what you care about. Start with the change you want to make in yourself. Because a queen doesn't wait for life to give her purpose. She chooses a direction, gives it meaning, and then builds her life around it. There is a difference between having high standards and believing you are better than everyone else. A woman with high standards is not trying to control people, impress people, or prove that she deserves more. She simply understands what she is willing to accept and what she is not willing to accept. She knows that every decision she makes teaches people how to treat her, and more importantly, it teaches herself what she believes she deserves. For a long time, many women are taught to be agreeable. They are encouraged to keep the peace, avoid confrontation, give endless chances, and make themselves smaller so other people feel comfortable. But there comes a point when keeping everyone comfortable becomes a betrayal of yourself. You cannot build a powerful life while constantly abandoning your own needs to satisfy everyone else's expectations. Raising your standards begins with becoming honest about what drains you. What conversations leave you feeling smaller? What relationships repeatedly cross your boundaries? What habits keep you stuck? What environments make you question your worth? Sometimes the first step toward a better life is not adding something new. It is having the courage to remove what no longer belongs. A queen understands that access to her time is valuable. She doesn't give unlimited attention to everyone who demands it. This doesn't mean she becomes cold or distant. It means she becomes intentional. She knows that time is one of the few resources she can never recover, so she becomes careful about where she invests it. The same applies to relationships. High standards don't mean looking for a flawless person. Everyone has weaknesses, makes mistakes, and has difficult days. High standards mean looking for qualities that actually matter: respect, honesty, consistency, accountability, kindness, and emotional maturity. You don't demand perfection. You demand healthy behavior. And there is another important part of having standards. You must be willing to enforce them. A boundary without action is only a request. If you say disrespect is unacceptable, but repeatedly stay in situations where you are disrespected, eventually your words lose meaning. The most powerful boundaries are not dramatic speeches. Sometimes they are quiet decisions. You stop responding to behavior that consistently violates your values. You step away from situations that repeatedly disturb your peace. You stop explaining the same boundary to someone who has already demonstrated that they understand it. This is where many people struggle. They are afraid that raising their standards will cause them to lose people, and sometimes it will. But losing access to people who only value you when you tolerate poor treatment is not necessarily a loss. Sometimes it is the price of growth. You cannot become the woman you want to be while desperately holding on to every person who is comfortable with the old version of you. Your standards should also apply to yourself. This is where true transformation happens. Don't only demand respect from others. Respect yourself enough to live with discipline. Don't expect honesty from others while lying to yourself about what you know is wrong. Don't ask for consistency from people while constantly breaking promises to yourself. VAR the standard of your own behavior. Wake up when you said you would. Finish what you started. Take responsibility when you make a mistake. Speak to yourself with dignity. Protect your health. Develop your skills. Manage your money responsibly. Choose environments that encourage growth. These choices may seem ordinary, but repeated consistently, they create extraordinary change. And remember, standards are not walls designed to keep everyone out. They are filters designed to help you recognize what belongs in your life. When you have standards, you stop confusing attention with love, chemistry with compatibility, and apologies with change. You begin watching actions instead of becoming hypnotized by words. You learn that consistency is more meaningful than promises, and character is more important than charm. This doesn't make you impossible to love. It makes you easier to love well. The woman who knows her standards doesn't need to announce them constantly. Her choices reveal them. She doesn't need to tell everyone that she values herself. People can see it in what she accepts, what she rejects, what she pursues, and what she walks away from. So raise your standards, not because you think you're better than anyone else, but because you are responsible for the life you are building. Your standards become the blueprint for the experiences you allow into your world. And when you stop negotiating against your own values, something changes inside you. You become calmer. You become clearer. You become stronger. You stop asking, how much can I tolerate? And you start asking, does this belong in the life I am building? That is the mindset of a queen. Emotional strength does not mean that you never feel hurt, angry, disappointed, afraid, or overwhelmed. It means you learn how to experience those emotions without allowing them to make every decision for you. A powerful woman is not a woman without emotions. She is a woman who has learned how to understand her emotions, sit with them, and choose her response instead of becoming controlled by them. Think about how quickly one difficult moment can change an entire day. Someone says something disrespectful, and suddenly your mind starts creating 100 stories. Someone doesn't respond to your message, and you begin questioning your worth. Someone criticizes you, and you spend hours replaying their words. One unexpected situation can take control of your thoughts if you haven't learned how to create space between what happens and how you respond. That space is where emotional power lives. You cannot control everything that happens around you. You cannot control what people say, how they behave, whether they understand you, or whether they choose to stay in your life. But you can develop control over what you do next. And that is one of the greatest forms of personal freedom. Imagine someone trying to provoke you. They expect an immediate reaction. They expect anger, defensiveness, an argument, or emotional chaos. But instead, you pause. You breathe. You observe what you're feeling. You ask yourself, what response will protect my dignity and serve my future? Suddenly, the situation no longer controls you. That pause may only last a few seconds, but those seconds can change everything. Emotional maturity means learning to recognize your triggers. Maybe rejection makes you chase harder. Maybe criticism makes you defensive. Maybe being ignored makes you desperate for attention. Maybe conflict makes you shut down completely. The goal is not to judge yourself for these reactions. The goal is to understand them, because you cannot change what you refuse to see. When you recognize a pattern, you can begin changing it. Instead of immediately sending the angry message, you wait. Instead of making a permanent decision during a temporary emotional storm, you give yourself time. Instead of assuming someone's behavior automatically means something about your worth, you consider other possibilities. This is not weakness. This is discipline. There will be moments when you need to walk away. There will be moments when silence is wiser than an argument. There will be moments when you need to speak firmly and defend yourself. Emotional mastery does not mean always staying quiet. Sometimes the strongest response is a clear conversation. Sometimes it is a boundary. Sometimes it is leaving. The key is that your response comes from clarity rather than uncontrolled emotion. A queen learns that every emotion carries information, but not every emotion deserves control. Anger might tell you that a boundary has been crossed. Fear might tell you that something feels uncertain. Sadness might reveal that something mattered deeply to you. Jealousy might expose an insecurity you need to understand. Emotions can be messengers without becoming your commanders. This distinction can transform relationships. Instead of blaming everyone around you for how you feel, you begin taking responsibility for understanding yourself. You stop expecting other people to constantly regulate your emotions. You become capable of saying, "This hurt me," without turning that pain into an attack. You also become less reactive to rejection. You realize that not every closed door is an insult. Not every disagreement is disrespect. Not every person who leaves is proof that something is wrong with you. Sometimes people simply choose different paths. And when you understand that, you stop chasing explanations that may never come. You stop begging for closure from people who cannot give it. You start giving yourself permission to move forward. Emotional strength also means learning to forgive yourself. You will make mistakes. You will trust the wrong person sometimes. You will say things you wish you had said differently. You will have days when you are not the strongest version of yourself. Don't turn one mistake into an identity. Learn. Take responsibility. Adjust. Continue. The woman who can regulate herself becomes difficult to destabilize. Not because life stops challenging her, but because she has developed an inner foundation strong enough to withstand uncertainty. That is real magnetism. People notice when someone can remain composed under pressure. They notice when a woman can disagree without becoming cruel, express disappointment without becoming destructive, and protect herself without losing her humanity. So the next time your emotions rise, don't immediately ask, "How do I make this feeling disappear?" Ask, "What is this feeling trying to teach me, and what response would make me proud tomorrow?" That question creates a pause. And inside that pause is your power. The woman you become in public is often created by what you repeatedly do in private. People may notice your confidence, your appearance, your communication, and the way you carry yourself, but they rarely see the countless small decisions that created those qualities. They don't see the mornings when you chose discipline instead of comfort. They don't see the moments when you kept a promise to yourself even though nobody would have known if you broke it. They don't see the hours you spent learning, improving, reflecting, and becoming stronger. But you see them, and that is why consistency matters so much. Anyone can become motivated for a day. Anyone can make a powerful declaration about changing their life. Anyone can create a new routine when everything feels exciting. But transformation doesn't happen because of what you intend to do. It happens because of what you repeatedly do after the excitement disappears. A queen understands that the life she wants is built through ordinary actions repeated with extraordinary consistency. Maybe you decide to read for 20 minutes every day. Maybe you begin exercising regularly. Maybe you learn a new skill. Maybe you stop spending hours scrolling through things that leave you feeling inadequate. Maybe you begin planning your days instead of reacting to everything that happens. None of these actions seem dramatic in isolation. But imagine repeating them for a year. The woman who consistently invests in herself will eventually become different from the woman who only talks about change. This is why you should stop underestimating small habits. You don't need to transform your entire life overnight. You need to become slightly better at keeping promises to yourself. Every completed promise becomes evidence that you can trust yourself. And self-trust is powerful. When you tell yourself you're going to wake up early and you do it, you build trust. When you say you will finish a task and you finish it, you build trust. When you decide you won't return to something that repeatedly harms your peace and you honor that decision, you build trust. Eventually, your confidence stops being based on positive affirmations alone. It becomes based on evidence. You know you can handle difficult things because you've handled difficult things before. You know you can stay disciplined because you've practiced discipline. You know you can recover because you've recovered. You know you can start again because you've started again. This is the kind of confidence that doesn't disappear when someone criticizes you. But consistency requires something many people don't want to hear. You will have days when you don't feel motivated. There will be mornings when you don't want to get up. There will be days when your progress feels invisible. There will be moments when you compare yourself with someone who seems to be moving faster. There will be times when you question whether your effort is worth it. Those moments are not proof that you should quit. They are opportunities to practice commitment. You don't need to feel inspired every day. You need to remember why the commitment matters. And consistency doesn't mean perfection. A queen can have an imperfect day. She can miss a workout, make a mistake, waste time, lose focus, or fall back into an old habit. The difference is that she doesn't use one bad day as an excuse to abandon herself. She resets, she returns, she continues. This is where many people fail. They think progress means never going backward. But real growth often looks like falling off track and learning how to return faster. Your private habits also shape your public presence. When you take care of yourself privately, you carry yourself differently publicly. When you know you've been working toward your goals, you don't need constant recognition. When you know you've kept your promises, you don't need to convince everyone that you're disciplined. Your life becomes the evidence. And there is something deeply magnetic about a woman who doesn't need an audience to improve herself. She isn't exercising because someone is watching. She isn't learning because she needs applause. She isn't becoming financially responsible because she wants to impress people. She is doing it because she has decided that her future deserves her effort. That is the difference between performance and transformation. So don't focus only on becoming impressive. Focus on becoming reliable to yourself. Choose one promise today. Something small enough that you can actually keep it. Then keep it tomorrow and the next day. Build from there, because eventually, the habits nobody saw will create the woman everybody notices. The discipline you practice in silence becomes confidence in public. The promises you keep privately become self-respect. And the consistency nobody applauds becomes the foundation of the queen you are becoming. There is a kind of confidence that demands attention, and there is another kind that naturally attracts it. One needs to be seen. The other simply knows who it is. True magnetism comes from the second kind. It is not about entering a room and trying to become the center of attention. It is about becoming so comfortable with yourself that you no longer need to compete for attention. Think about the difference between someone who constantly announces their worth and someone who quietly lives it. The first person may speak loudly about how successful, beautiful, intelligent, or important they are. The second person doesn't need to explain. You can see it in the way she speaks, listens, walks, responds, and carries herself. Her confidence is not a performance. It is the result of knowing herself. A woman with quiet confidence doesn't walk into a room thinking, "How can I make everyone notice me?" She walks in thinking, "How can I be fully present here?" that small shift changes everything. Instead of worrying about how she is being perceived, she becomes curious about the people around her. Instead of comparing herself to every woman in the room, she focuses on contributing something meaningful. Instead of trying to prove that she belongs, she assumes that she has the right to be there. This doesn't mean she believes she is better than everyone else. It means she no longer believes she is less than everyone else. And that is powerful. Confidence is built from all the previous choices you've made. When you respect yourself, you don't need strangers to validate you. When you have purpose, you don't need every person to approve of your direction. When you have standards, you don't chase people who don't value you. When you can regulate your emotions, you don't allow every comment to shake you. When you are consistent, you know that your confidence has a foundation. Your presence becomes the expression of your inner work. One of the simplest ways to develop this presence is to become comfortable with silence. You don't have to fill every pause. You don't have to explain every decision. You don't have to respond to every criticism. You don't have to prove your innocence to everyone who misunderstands you. Sometimes silence communicates self-control. Sometimes walking away communicates self-respect. Sometimes saying less allows your actions to speak more clearly than your words ever could. But quiet confidence is not passivity. A confident woman can speak directly when something matters. She can disagree. She can ask difficult questions. She can say no. She can defend someone she cares about. She can express her needs without apologizing for existing. The difference is that she doesn't need aggression to feel powerful. She understands that strength and kindness can exist together. She can be warm without being weak. She can be feminine without surrendering her boundaries. She can be ambitious without becoming consumed by competition. She can celebrate other people's success without questioning her own. And perhaps most importantly, she doesn't shrink herself to make other people comfortable. If you walk into a room and someone doesn't like you, you don't have to immediately change yourself. If someone is more successful than you, you don't have to feel inferior. If someone receives more attention, you don't have to compete. Another woman's beauty does not take away from yours. Another person's success does not cancel your potential. There is enough room for people to shine differently. When you understand that, comparison loses its power. You begin focusing on your own path. You speak with greater intention. You listen more carefully. You stop interrupting because you no longer fear being forgotten. You stop exaggerating because you no longer need to impress. You stop chasing because you understand that what belongs in your life doesn't require you to abandon your dignity to keep it. That is what makes presence magnetic. People are drawn to those who are genuinely present. They feel safe around people who aren't constantly judging them or competing with them. They remember the woman who made them feel heard, respected, and comfortable being themselves. So if you want to become more magnetic, don't focus only on how you look when you enter a room. Focus on how you make the room feel when you are there. Bring calm, bring curiosity, bring confidence, bring respect. And most importantly, bring yourself. You don't need to become louder to become more powerful. You don't need to become someone else to become unforgettable. The queen doesn't enter the room asking for permission to shine. She enters knowing that she already carries her own light. And when you reach that level of self-assurance, you stop chasing magnetism. You become magnetic.